celebrating youth heritage, there is one person that you probably heard about it. It's Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla is well known for a long time, but probably became more popular when we introduced these Tesla cars. And even my colleagues and British people, which didn't know anything about Tesla, suddenly realized there is something to be connected with Tesla. But who was Tesla really? And why we are celebrating Tesla so much? It's up to Avram Balabanović to tell us more about it. And regardless how much we know about it, it's always something more to learn. So I would ask Avram to come and to thank him for taking time and effort to write article in Serbian catalog about Tesla and to be here tonight. But also last year was the 80th anniversary of Tesla's death and was very much celebrated. And further on we are putting up with our talk, and then afterwards with the concert by Branko Stošin, whose hero is Tesla as well. So we hear more about it after. Here you are.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Do we have anybody with Tesla surname? But we have one Nikola there tonight. There's a Nikola there. Can you stand up, Nikola? Bravo. Tesla was born in a village called Smiljane in Lika, and as a young man, a little bit younger than you are, was very interested in various experimental things. He had a very supportive mother who who couldn't read or write. Very encouraging. She was encouraging experimentations. When he was sent to school, which was in Graz, which was all then part of Austro-Hungarian Empire, he established himself as a fantastic student. He was reading a lot. He was spending hours studying. At some point, he changed the subjects in his studies from languages, literature, more towards physics and mathematics. And this is where he excelled. When he finished the middle school in Graz and Gospic, there were two schools, one after another, he went home, and his father, who was a Serbian priest in the village of Smiljane. Smiljane was a small place, maybe about 40 houses, asked him to stay, really wanting him to be a priest as well. And also Tesla at that time was quite sort of gentle, ill health. He was not doing well on the health side. But Tesla was insistent that he wants to study further. And eventually the family managed to send him to Prague to study technical studies. While he was in Prague, his father at some point died, and he was meant again to go home. But his uncle on his mother's side realized his potential and organized for him to go to see some family friends in Budapest in Hungary and to work in one of the companies there. Tesla at that early age already had permutation in his head what he wanted to discover. The key thing for him was, which is he mentioned to one of his professors at university, the key thing for him was to convince everybody that something called alternating current is the way of future rather than then prevailing direct current. I don't know whether you studied some physics or whether do we know what is direct current? Or, yeah, okay. Direct current goes in one flow very slowly and at some point gets tired because of the distance, and you have to put a power amplifier to get it further out. Alternative current has these features that you can transmit it at long distances without losses, and that was his idea. The guy in Budapest realized his potential and sent him to work for a French company that belonged to famous Edison. They sent him on some chores to do work in Strasbourg, and he did fantastic repair jobs then. The head of the French company, a guy called Bachelor, recommended that he should go to America to see Edison, and he wrote to Edison and said, "You, Mr. Edison, is one of the greatest men I know. This young man is another one." So Tesla eventually sailed to America. In those days, sailing was 10 days. Arrived there pretty penniless. Again, uncles provided some money, famous uncles. And he started to work with some menial jobs. He then joined the Edison company and started to talk to Edison about alternating current. And he said to Edison, like, forget about direct current, DC. Let's do AC, alternative current. And Edison said, no. You stay here, you repair what we you have salary, and do it. They had a particularly big problem, and they said, if you repair this particular equipment, I'll give you $50,000. Tesla worked day and night. He repaired the thing, made it work perfectly, went to Edison and said, where's my money? And Edison said, well, come on, you don't understand American joke. This was only said in passing. That really was the end of his job at Edison, and decided to do the thing on his own. Again, without money. He then met one guy, Mr. Brown, who said, oh, I like what you do, maybe we should start to do something together. He went to a solicitor, Mr. Peck, who was not so keen to invest in Tesla. And Tesla then told him the story of Columbus' egg, which is an old story, maybe a myth, where Columbus, the discoverer, explorer, was in a company of people, and he said, can you make egg stand on its end? They all tried, couldn't do it. Columbus cracked a little bit the egg, put it up, and it stood. Big laugh and everything, but as a result of that, the then Queen Isabella of Spain gave him money to do explorations and to build a ship to go to sail to then West Indies. Peck, the lawyer, said, Tesla said to Peck, I can prove to you in a different way using my system of rotating magnetic field. And Peck said, well, if you do that, I'll give you the money. Tesla went to a blacksmith, I don't know whether we have any blacksmiths these days, made a brass egg, a dish, put some of his current coils underneath, switched on the current, and the egg started to wobble. And then he put more current, and it wobbled more and more, until eventually it was rotating on its end. And that was proof of rotating magnetic field. Peck gave him money, and three of them, Peck, Brown, and Tesla, set up a company. Now, I won't bore you with a lot of other things that he was experimenting at that time, but he started to patent his discoveries very diligently. Anything that he thought was worthwhile, he would get an American patent. Industrial school, Westinghouse, was very interested in his idea of alternative current, to make alternative current motors. He made a deal with Tesla to give him quite a bit of money then, and also royalty of any motor sold afterwards. And that was the beginning of money for Tesla. There are some stories going that Tesla was never capitalize on his ideas, that he was exploited, that he never made money. I wouldn't say that's true. At that age of 28, 9, he made about $1 million. So that was not too bad. Edison, who was pushing the direct current motors, started to fight with Westinghouse, and that is so-called war of currents, where it was who would prevail. Eventually, Tesla's ideas prevailed, and Westinghouse made the first big AC alternating current motor on Niagara Falls, which produced electricity to nearby city of Buffalo. Tesla was not good enough for him. He was making money, but he was also spending money. He spent money on his experiments. He spent money on some good life as well. He managed to convince then another rich man, Jacob Astor, to give him some money to develop new lighting ideas. After 3 years of chasing Astor gave him $100,000 for number of shares in his company. Immediately he got the money, he started to think how he will spend it, on what experiment, what new things. He went to Colorado Springs and decided that he could prove to everybody that there is something called a wireless transmission. He made a big electricity generator in a cabin specially made in Colorado Springs, creating basically thunderstorms with the electricity generating. And to prove that the electricity was traveling 20 miles from his laboratory on a wet ground, he plugged 200 bulbs, just electric bulbs, in the wet ground, no wires, nothing. When he started his generator, the bulbs lit up. There was a film about it called Prestige, which that is shown. And again, there was another discovery by Tesla that there is a wireless transmission. And if you think about it, how we use our iPhones, that is wireless transmission. We pick up the signals from air. In those days, that was unthinkable. He met another guy, again millionaire, J.P. Morgan, quite a famous millionaire, and said to him, I've got another brilliant idea. I'll make 2 towers. I'll make a big tower on Atlantic side of America. I'll beam the signals across Atlantic Ocean and we'll pick them up on the other side. And you'll be able to talk. And then I'll make another one on the Pacific side and do it the other way around. And J.P. Morgan said, how much would that cost? And Tesla said, the Atlantic side, $100,000 to you, my friend. The other one, $500,000. And J.P. Morgan said, well, let's do one ocean at a time. I'll give you 100,000. No, he said, how much do you really want for the Atlantic tower? He said 100,000. And he said, I'll give you 150,000. But don't ask me for money anymore. I know you scientists, you think about and then you run out of money. 150 in exchange for 50% of whatever we discover. Tesla was so surprised, nicely surprised, and he said, I'll give you 51% and I'll keep 49, which was a bit naive. When the contract came for him to sign, clever J.P. Morgan didn't ask for just 50% of that project. He wanted 50% of everything that Tesla by then discovered. Tesla already had a deal with Astor for some parts of it. He went to Astor, said, "Can you match this?" Astor said, "I'm not giving you any more money." And eventually, he swallowed the deal with JP Morgan because he had this urge, this idea to make the town for the transmission of signals across the ocean. On the side of it, Anne, daughter of JP Morgan, was the only lady that Tesla ever admitted that he was in love with. The other lady in his life was Katherine Johnson, the wife of Robert Underwood Johnson, who we think was platonic, for all we know, and who was really impressed with Tesla. He was constantly visiting him and asking him to explain things. So Tesla started to build the tower. The costs escalated, and eventually Tesla went to JP Morgan as suspecting and said, "Can I have some more money?" And JP Morgan said no. Now, in our knowledge of Teslas, I read that we say, well, JP Morgan was a capitalist, he exploited him, didn't give him what he wanted. Well, not quite true. JP Morgan invested into him and he never got anything back from the initial $100,000. Tesla went to ask for another $75,000. I read that when JP Morgan died, when Tesla wrote a letter to his son Jack gave him $25,000 more. But that experiment never succeeded. Tesla's biggest inventions were his early and mid-life inventions of the motors, the pushing the alternative current instead of direct current. And really this is what we have these days. Anything you young guys see that rotates, or in your home, washing machine, it's based on Tesla motor. The mixer is based on Tesla motor. Elon Musk, when he was building his Tesla car, decided to use, again, Tesla's AC motor idea. Otherwise, if it was Edison and DC current, that car would have been called Edison now, it wouldn't be called Tesla. What we owe to Tesla was fantastic drive to invent things. And excuse me, at that point, I would just clarify, he didn't like the word invent. He said for himself that he would discover things. And then he said, once you discover something, inventors can pick bits and pieces from it to make various things. He had a very successful visit to the UK, where he had fantastic reception and a couple of lectures in London. He then went to have a further lecture in Paris. At that time, he was told that his mother was dying, and he rushed to Gospić and Smiljan, but story is not quite clear. I think he just made it the day or the night she died. He was then going to back home, but Belgrade authorities begged him to carry him to Belgrade and give another lecture, which he did. They had a fantastic reception there. The whole thing of discoverer, inventor, someone pushed me a note, which I must tell you. He said, Was he a visionary? Was he a showman? Was he a genius? Was he imaginative? Was he misunderstood? And was he enigmatic? Well, I would say all of that combined. He never spent a second without thinking, and the big mental ability which he had was to envisage things. We have very few of his drawings other than the ones submitted to the patent office. But he will, to intimate detail, imagine how the thing will work, and then he would just pass it on to a technician to make it. And then for these fantastic young people, on Monday when you go to school, wear a clean shirt or whatever you wear, clean shoes. Because Tesla someone wrote, he will stroll along Fifth Avenue, which was a very fashionable place in New York, and they said he was the best dressed man at any time. So bear that in mind. Thanks very much.